They started in very different places. Gilbert Proesch growing up in Italy, George Passmore in Plymouth. But after meeting in London in 1967, they became personally and professionally inseparable, their surnames forgotten as Gilbert and George. Artistically recognised with the Turner Prize in 1986, they also have unusual public recognition through art that frequently uses their own images as living, singing sculptures, or in pictures meticulously suited or naked. But because their work features words and turds, among other bodily substances that some consider taboo, they have also, by their opponents, been called names other than Gilbert and George. Their latest show, the Urethra postcard art, featuring sex cards from phone boxes shaped in a twist on genital geometry, will continue the reactions of both fans and detractors. Is it an equal partnership always, or is one of you the dominant figure?
We would say it's very equal in a modern way. Yes.
I think I would
Very
say we are both able to do different things in an extraordinary way, and together we make a whole. I think one is more able towards that and the other one's towards the other, but together we create a total idea.
As we always say, it's two people but one artist. That's the key to it, the secret really.
Have you ever had serious arguments, first of all professionally, in the case of the art? Because you know, many people who write together or who perform together, they end up not speaking, but have you ever had a serious disagreement?
We say that we don't argue, and we wouldn't tell you if we did. But we don't argue. No, we think we're very conscious of the pain and hostility and fighting in the world. We think that is, every day we think of that, the human suffering is so great that why should we become part of that? Why should we fight or argue?
Alone we would be lost, so we don't want to destroy that.
Being one removes self-doubt in both of our cases, which is very powerful, extremely powerful. It's a great strength being two. That's why most of the world is divided into twos. It's perfectly normal.
And not only that, it created for us a world that we don't need anybody. We don't need friends, we don't need cities, we don't need what you call to go anywhere to be happier. Huh? But together, alone, we are able to think in a very interesting way.
We think we're enormously privileged that we can go to our studio in the morning and say exactly what we want in our pictures. Nobody can interfere. We don't have to ask anybody or refer to anybody. That's an extraordinary privilege. Very few people have that freedom. And there are other privileges to be able to take those pictures out into the world to thousands of people in London or in Madrid or New York. It's extraordinary. We're very proud of having made a path that's able to do that.
The parallels that people have often used, one is a comedy double act, which is an obvious, particularly going back to the singing sculptures, you can see why. Another one is a married couple.
We just think Gilbert and George, the artists, really. It's much clearer then.
Expressing our new feelings on the walls to create a new sculpture. Who cares about marriages or all that stuff? Nothing.
Being normal and being weird at the same time, that's what we always want, yeah. Never just the one, yeah. How is the tea, Gilbert?
It's very nice. Would you like some cake?
Thank you, yes. Would you like some cheese?
Yes, I would like very much a piece of Leicester.
Here you are.
Thank you, George.
How do you feel, Gilbert?
I feel relaxed after the long walk. How do you feel?
I feel fine, thank you. Rather brainy and relaxed.
It has been suggested, you may not want to answer, it has been suggested that you are in fact married, which would be possible, but are you?
We did have a civil partnership recently, yes. But more for practical purposes rather than as a imitation straight marriage, yes.
The practical purposes, financial and practical and so on.
Yes.
Yeah. When I look at you now, today, for this interview, you have suits of similar design but different colours, ties of similar design but different colours, similar shoes. Is all of that carefully planned in advance?
We just want to devote ourselves to art. We're all dragged at increasing speed towards the grave. Any picture that we don't make will be not made by somebody else. So we don't need to go shopping. We don't have to cook. Everything's based on having a very simple life, including the tailoring. We don't have to change style every 3 years like the boys in the city. We don't have to peg trousers and then the big shoulders. It's always the same style and very simple. The shirts we buy every 3 years, they're always white. Ties, we only wear the ones that were given as presents. It's a very, very simple life devoted to art.
But it started out as Sunday best. When we used to go to see galleries to try to promote ourselves in the beginning, we had to go to Sunday best. No? And we kept to that. And it became like, like the uniform of a monk or the uniform of all the politicians. They all have in some way the same kind of suit on. No? Okay, not all the artists have a suit, but more and more artists have suits now.
We always said that it's like if you go for a job interview or if you go to a funeral, you put on a suit. And we come from that sort of background. We even said in the very early days that we always wanted to be the artist that the mother wouldn't be ashamed of. It didn't work out exactly like that, but...
Well, we're going to talk about that later, about some of the content which would actually worry some mothers. But they're versions in pairs, though,
yeah, there are versions in pairs,
yes. It's a myth created by the media that we have identical suits. If we had identical suits, one of us would be very ill-fitting, wouldn't they?
Quite true.
It is a kind of uniform. It is, yeah.
The responsibility suits of our art, I think we wrote in 1969.
Does that ever become a burden that you can't nip out for a pint of milk wearing tracksuit trousers and a sweatshirt?
Why should we do that? That would be...
Mad.
It's very good. It's very simple and very anonymous. You can travel anywhere in the world, yeah? Australia, Johannesburg, New York. Everyone wears suits. It's completely normal. Every prime minister in the world.
We never want to change that. It's fantastic.
You're never searched at airports. You can always get a table in a restaurant. It's extraordinary.
It never becomes a burden.
No.
That 40 years ago, in effect, you set the rules in the laws of sculptures.
No, it works so well. Even a young lady friend of ours took her mother to the Tate Modern exhibition with the hope of disturbing or upsetting her. And on leaving the exhibition, the mother said, "I'm not quite sure of all of their pictures, dear, but they do dress so nicely." So you see, we got away with it.
Getting away with it,
it's very important.
That's very important.
We never wanted to be the scruffy artists anyway, yeah? The conventional, so-called conventional artists.
Do people generally know which one is which, or are you addressed randomly as Gilbert, George?
I think amongst our friends and colleagues, they would know, yes.
But we don't care about that so much.
It's not so important.
It's very funny because a lot of people believe that Gilbert is more English name than George. And that's why we always have a problem when we go to Germany or other place. They always think, oh, George must be the German or the Italian one.
It's extraordinary. It's a sort of tribal thing. Yeah? People come up and say, it's a wonderful exhibition, and we're especially proud of you, Georg. Extraordinary. And I say, thank you so much. It's very good.
Now, this is another of the legends that you go to the same place each day to eat. But is that literally true?
Yes. We go to the same restaurant every evening when we're not entertaining, and we have the same meal month in, month out, until we decide to change it. And then we'll change it, and that will be the same meal every evening until we change our minds again. We don't like the idea of reading menus or thinking about food. It seems rather a waste of brain to us.
So the whole life, from the suit to the restaurant, to it's all about leaving time for the work.
To free up the brain, to use the brain in a special way, not to be cluttered.
To be free people that can think whatever they want.
We trained ourselves to clear the head, and it's an extraordinary thing that you can have it feels like a big desert in front, panning out like that, which we can do something with.
What's your favourite TV programme?
Songs of Praise.
Why did you choose to live as artists?
It was not our choice. We are driven to be artists.
What's your biggest hope?
We hope for better recognition.
What's your biggest fear?
We fear everything, all the time.
Much of the work, and we're going to talk about this more, has been regarded as shocking by some people in terms of the words used, the materials used. Has that ever been your intention?
We always talk about de-shocking, really. We prefer to think of it in those terms. We're not the artists to make people run screaming from the museum or gallery or have the police involved. We're very, very subversive, really. Not so controversial in that way.
When you use the term de-shocking, tell me more what you meant by that.
Well, when a person says, you shouldn't have made that picture shitted and it shouldn't have been exhibited, we say, well, that's your view, but you're too late, because we're talking about it. It's as simple as that. People in general are not shocked. Only the media say that people are shocked. They have this patronizing idea of the ordinary person. Ordinary people are very, very complex and elaborate and sophisticated. It's newspapers more, I think, not ordinary people. I never had a taxi driver or a waiter say, your pictures are shocking or provocative. Yeah. Never. They love them. Yeah. Good on you guys, they say.
I think shocking would be more like killing somebody or hurting somebody.
The news, television news, that's shocking.
Hurting people, I think that's shocking.
You also play with expectation, because some people, and indeed some journalists, seeing the word urethra in the title of this exhibition, they have a very different idea of what they might see from, in fact, what they do see. I suppose to some extent the urethra is de-shocked in these, isn't it? Because if your urethra really looked like that, you should see a doctor quite urgently.
We like the word urethra, because people don't use the common term for it. We wouldn't even use it on television, probably. Yeah.
You're allowed, they bleep up immediately.
Yeah. And have you ever been to a urethra exhibition before? Certainly not. So it's very good to have one.
Even after all, it is the beginning of life, no? That's where we come from, roughly. The sperm, that part of urethra. We're fascinated by all this, what you call, opening up new ways of thinking, no? Everybody's exciting some way, even when they are shocked in some way, but that for us is stimulating. Even like the telephone box leaflets, no? Everybody who goes into a telephone box tries to look only from one eye, and pretend the other eye looking somewhere else, no? And now they can come in and look at it straight out.
You're talking about those little, which you've used in some of these, those little postcards advertising the services of often young men and women, often not so young.
Yeah. No, we were fascinated that they're part of London life. Paris, New York, they don't have them. Rome, they don't have them. It's another first for Britain. It's extraordinary. And it is, in the end, a huge social document that we collected all of these cards. They don't exist anymore, the ones in this show. They're all different now. They're more boring now. So they are really from the golden age of telephone box cards, you could say.
So the cards in these, they are real cards?
They're all real.
They're all real cards stuck down, yes. That's very important.
Were you tempted to ring any of the numbers and see who was on the end? They're doing it for us, a lot of people.
Are they? I thought they might be.
Even, yes, it's very funny because actually we did another group of pictures called the New Honey pictures, and some of the gentlemen who advertised it, they thanked us for being in the artwork.
Become immortal, they felt.
Do you read reviews, and if so, to what extent do you take notice of them?
My motto is, I don't want to know. That's what I say to myself day and night. And George does read them, and in the end I will see them as well. No? But because we realized, it took a long time to realize, we wouldn't change our way of making art. If they are good or bad. We wouldn't. So they are very useful to get people into the gallery, and that's what we like to do. But more and more, we are doing the campaign outside the reviews ourselves. Because a lot of art critics are prejudiced. They go with the idea, they know exactly what they see. They don't even have to come to see the show, they know it. No? They are prejudiced towards certain kind of ideas.
I want to talk now about the one area of your life which was separate, which is childhood. If we start with you, Gilbert, what are your earliest memories of your Italian childhood?
Oh, I remember quite a lot, yes, I must admit that. And it's a fantastic village where I come from. It's a little village, about 900 people in the Dolomites, and beautiful mountains, and extraordinary.
Was there any interest or sense of art in your family?
Oh, it was very much so. It's very exciting because, my father was a shoemaker, and I had an uncle who was, had some kind of bone cancer. And he was in many different hospitals, like in Venice and in Cortina d'Ampezzo. And he always used to paint. In fact, he actually went to an art school when he was very young already. And that's it. That's what I wanted to do. And I must have been 6 or 7 years old when I, became interested.
George, you presumably growing up in Plymouth, a famous naval town, there was a much stronger sense of the war, of the post-war period.
Yeah, we were actually bombed out of Plymouth in 42, so we ended up in Totnes, an old borough, and I think I had quite a privileged childhood, considering the times, really. It was just my mother and my brother, and we were never allowed to play with the other children, which was was very good. We never became the local rough idiots, right? It was a very good idea.
Why was that? Was that because she thought they were rough, your mother?
I think she wanted better things for her children, and she was quite right.
Did you feel the lack of a father? I mean, there must have come an age when you were aware of
No,
that.
no, it didn't. Nothing was ever mentioned in the family about father or dad or anything. Felt very normal, really, yeah.
You must have been curious about him at some point.
I was curious, and when I was 21, I went to see him, yes. The first and last time. It wasn't necessary to go back again. I had to find him in a pub in the village, and the barman pointed him out to me, and I went up and said, do you think we could go to the other bar? And he said, no, you don't need to do that, it's perfect. What's the business? And I said, could we go to the other bar probably 17 times? And I said, well, I think my name's George and I think I'm your son. He said, good God, let's go to the other bar. It was very amusing.
And was there any sense of art in your family?
No, I think not, probably. No, absolutely not. I was interested in art from being a child, and as a teenager, I bought a second-hand book of Van Gogh's letters, and that convinced me entirely, because I realized that it was someone who hadn't done the right thing, hadn't had the right training, mixed in the wrong circles, behaved very badly, but still succeeded totally in being able to speak from the grave forever. That impressed me completely. I was still impressed with Van Gogh, yes.
Did you know relatively early on what your sexuality was?
We don't think of it in that way. We try to be post-gay in a way, to say that everyone is sexual in some way, everyone is capable of everything. We prefer the idea of nil, the non-divisional way of thinking of sex, that everything is fine.
They used to do it even. All the Romans, they did everything. Don't have to be one way only. Sex is sex.
We're all very conventionalized.
We prefer very much that we don't like to be part of shows towards a certain kind of sex. Not at all. We always want that. We accept sex. That's about it. But we don't want to be divided into certain section. And I think it's very bad even, because anybody is able to do whatever they want. Different ways of sexuality. We don't know what everybody does behind the bedroom, behind the doors.
When you're listed as you have been in those lists of the 100 most influential gay people in Britain and so on.
Oh, that's perfectly right, of course, yeah.
So although that is a division, that doesn't irritate you?
No, we wouldn't be irritated by that, not at all.
There's nothing that we can do about it.
The moment when you met, ideally as on the TV show Mr. and Mrs., we would send one of you into a soundproof booth to check that you have similar memories. But this first meeting, 25th of September, 1967.
Good heavens, you have the date.
1967. Yeah. Are your memories, in fact, the same of it?
I always say it's something that came over us, like an atmosphere or a cloud. It wasn't something we decided or went for. I think we were almost artists before we realized. People were commenting on it. And of course, the most common comment at that time was, oh, I'm very interested, but of course it can't last. Because twos didn't last at that time, right?
For me, it's very simple. I went to St. Martin's School of Art. I couldn't speak English. And I wanted to be there because when I was in the last year in Munich, I realized I have to be somewhere else where it is happening. And London was it. And I became very fascinated by St. Martin's School of Art, and I managed to squeeze in some way. And I remember walking up there, and George took an interest. That was it. No? I don't ask him any questions. He took an interest and we went out and we created a world for ourselves. And he showed me London, he showed me East End of London. He showed that then in that moment they already became these two persons together without actually making a big decision.
We weren't like the other students, that's for sure. They were all intent on becoming artists and working on how to become an artist. We felt we were artists anyway. Yeah?
But the G&G world started when we were stranded outside St. Martin's School of Art, when we left. In the moment that you leave school, you are alone for the first time. Because they don't want to know you anymore. All the teachers think that's it.
They turned against us, in fact.
Yes, they turned against us.
In what way?
Oh, yes.
Even the head of sculpture, the very famous Frank Martin, turned against us. He felt that we were betraying the cause of sculpture, probably. Yeah? We were very unsure of the attitude of the college, and so we asked a friend of ours to write a letter saying that she was interested in doing some project or something. They would recommend us, wouldn't they? And back came the letter from the college. Dear madam, under no circumstances have anything to do with these people. Even then we felt very proud immediately. We thought we must be doing right. Yeah?
And it was very exciting because then we had this idea to do the singing sculpture for the first time, and we thought, okay, we have to go back into our, first St. Martin's School of Art, then Royal College of Art, Camberwell School of Art, Slade School of Art, and we did amazing publicity for it. Everybody was there.
Underneath the arches, we dream our dreams away.
Anyway, Frank Martin left immediately.
He stomped out in the middle of it. And of course, all the 500 students saw this man enraged, stomping out, so they knew it was a marvelous sculpture in that moment, right? If they weren't sure, that told them. Yeah.
It was very good because they rejected us. And then we knew we had to do it on our own.
Herald in the dawn, sleeping when it's raining.
What led directly to the idea of the singing sculptures?
We didn't do just a singing sculpture. We did full of different, what they call, every day something different. No? Like we did the walking sculpture, the singing sculpture, the eating sculpture, the magazine sculpture, the postal sculpture. So every day creating a world, creating a G&G world, no? Without having to be in a gallery. No? We still want, so the world, all the world are, what did he say in the text? All the world an art gallery. Yeah. All the world an art gallery. And that's what we did. We were able to speak to artistic people in some way with the postal sculptures that we did in '69, sending out to collect and stuff like that. And even we were ready in 1970, I think 71, 72, we did a magazine sculpture for the Sunday Times. So it was not based on, we realized we couldn't be in a gallery, but we still wanted to be artists. And we were able to create a whole total new world. And it was very exciting.
In fact, it was the living sculpture that led to the singing sculpture going to Germany.
Yes. Which
was an enormous success. That was the first great piece of chance luck that we had, because there was a very famous international touring exhibition called When Attitudes Become Form, or Live in Your Head it was called as well. And wherever it went in the world, a curator in that city was asked to add artists from that city to the exhibition. And it was coming to London, it was coming to the ICA in London, and we knew the selector, and we knew that we'd be included. And to our shock and horror, he didn't invite us. We were amazed by that. We were some of the very few artists who could be included in that show. And we were rather desperate, we were very downcast about it. We thought, what a missed opportunity. And we thought the only thing we can do about it is to be living sculptures, which we are already. And we'll take ourselves to the private view and be living sculptures. And we went to the private view with our hands and heads covered with multicolored metallized powders and stood stock still in the middle of the opening and stole the show entirely. And at the end of the evening, a young man came and said, I am Conrad Fischer, you do something with me in Düsseldorf, huh? This was the most famous art dealer of his age. And it was an invitation which every artist would die for at that time. And we went to Düsseldorf and we did the singing sculpture to enormous success. It was very strange because it's a completely normal democratic thing for the vast general public. They know that you have sculptures in museums on plinth. So to see two men moving on a table is not unlike a sculpture, and it's called the living sculpture anyway. And people of all backgrounds and all age groups could actually stand and look at this sculpture for hours on end. It was an enormous success.
3 Dozen Streets, which is a work from 2003, is particularly significant, I think, because it has the names of East London streets, and that has become central to your work. But what took you to East London in the first place? I mean, was that just chance, luck again?
Just the cheapest place to live. £12 a month for one floor of any building. And you could live, work or live, didn't matter. At that time, if you had a bed sit, you wouldn't be allowed to paint or sculpt in it. And if you had a studio, you wouldn't be allowed to stay overnight. So in these buildings, you could do both, very cheap.
But we are based on accidents. We like that. Whatever happens, happens. You know? And sometimes what they call bad accidents turn out extraordinarily good ones. That's what we like very much.
It became the sort of center of the universe anyway, where we live. If you get on an aeroplane or a train or sit in a restaurant anywhere in the world, within 3 or 4 minutes somebody says Brick Lane. It's quite extraordinary.
And I sometimes really believe that George is the only English person in Spitalfield.
Were you regarded at that time, as eccentric? Did you stand out there at all?
I think we've always been the favourites of the Cockney people, because they're very proud that somebody lives, that we're not born there, we're not born Cockneys, but we are settled in what they feel is the East End. So they're very proud of us, in fact. Even the Bangladeshis are quite proud of us. So we feel we are honorary Cockneys, we're honorary Bangladeshis, we're honorary Muslims, we're honorary Alevi Kurds now, because we're very close to the Alevi people.
But we do believe that eccentric means homophobic in some way.
No, I mean, I wondered about that, because you were two men living together.
The odd couple and all this.
All this. It's still going on non-stop, this eccentric. What does it mean? I mean,
well, I mean, it can mean anything. It can mean the way you dress, or
we
as you
know
say,
we know roughly what it means, yes.
Were you aware of homophobia at that stage in the East End?
Of course, it's endemic to this day. Now it's only amongst the educated people, isn't it? Ordinary people are much more liberal now than ever before.
Other artists, as you know, as they've become richer and more famous, Anthony Gormley, Damien Hirst, they've bought huge houses in the country. The countryside. Have you ever been tempted to go?
No. I mean, we have everything that we want. Yeah. I mean,
we're not that normal.
But you've never left the area.
No, we don't want anything. It's very simple. We bought a house in 1973 that we did up ourselves, day and night, for 5 or 6 years. You know? We restored it. We were the first one to restore a Huguenot house in the East End of London, because they were used as factories for what you call Jewish immigrants at that time. No? And they were making buttons, making fur coats, and tailors. All our tailors were next to it. And we were the first one to take it back to a private house in some way.
No, we never wanted other properties or holiday homes or cars or yachts or anything like that. We lived very, very simply. Extremely simple.
What we like most is our 45 or George 2-hour walk in the evening. That's fantastic. I never want to go to see another city, because everything is in the brain. We don't need to see beautiful mountain, beautiful village, beautiful we don't have to be inspired by the pyramids of Egypt, no? Because for us it's all in the brain, inside.
Bend it, just a little bit, take it easy, show your lucky
When we look back at your art now, it's clear, in retrospect at least to me, that you were constantly questioning what could be called sculptures. So you bring in performance art. In some of those early works, you're using charcoal other people would say were drawings. Later on, paint comes in. But was that a conscious, I mean, it's one of the things that annoyed the head of sculpture, presumably, but was that a conscious decision that you were going to question what sculpture was?
We called everything sculpture at the beginning just because we'd been sculpture students. And we abandoned that when we realized it wasn't so democratic. It was a little confusing for the vast general public. The art world liked that, yeah? Like we said, charcoal on paper sculptures rather than drawings, yeah? Or the paintings was a sculpture, not 6 triptychs. But I think we were trying to find our form. And we realized that the negative image, when you press the button on a camera, is the most important thing. Because if a person goes to a museum and sees a marble naked figure, and then a bronze naked figure, and then an oil painting naked figure, they won't bat an eyelid. Huh? A tribal African naked sculpture, all fine, until you see a full-size naked figure taken with the camera. Then you're in trouble, because it means more, it's more truthful, it's more honest. And so we were always working towards that. All of the charcoal on paper sculptures are done with a photograph and then copied, as are the paintings. Yeah? But we didn't know how technically to make a large, what became the photopiece, and now we call them pictures.
We found a way with the negative. I think that for us was more powerful, the photopieces. No? Became for us the best language to speak. No? Drawings means immediately art. Painting means means old-fashioned art. No? Oil paint. Art is, even today, art still means oil paint. No? And we try to get away with and speaking in a modern way, and that we are very proud that we found our own way of speaking.
There's a big exhibition at the moment in London at the Royal Academy of British Sculpture. It struck me that ideally you two should be standing in there singing.
We thought that it should give us at least the possibility to refuse.
But I'm interested in that. Did you feel you perhaps ought to have been in that exhibition?
I think they should have asked us.
They should have asked, yes. Because we broke the idea of the sculpture as an object in that way, yeah? That it could be anything.
Anything. It could be sound.
But we're very pleased that we're not in, because it's quite a horrific mess, the exhibition, it seems.
It'd also be quite demanding for you to spend 4 months standing in there.
We would show a film of the scene sculpture, or postal sculptures, or charcoal on paper sculptures. Right. Even right up until the Dirty Words pictures, there's still sculpture in the wording, as it says on the piece.
Even the paintings, with us in the nature. No? They are a massive amount. There are 6 big triptychs.
It's a sculpture. Yeah.
A sculpture. They are 6 meters each. And we just sold it this year to a museum that only shows sculpture. In the
it still works.
And people inevitably look for a division in the work, which is how we think of who did that and who did that. You most remind me, I think, of the Coen brothers, the film directors. Well, they take the shared credit, produced and directed by Joel and Ethan. And when they're asked who made that shot and who did that and who produces and who directs, they say that it's a pointless question because...
We don't even know who...
How would you know? How would you know?
I mean, for us it's very simple because we take images. Now we both have cameras. Nobody knows who took what.
I tell Gilbert what I think and feel, and Gilbert tells me what he thinks and feels. So it's one big soup together. Yeah.
I mentioned the charcoal sculptures. In about the mid-70s, there's a great explosion of colour, particularly red, which in fact goes through almost right through the career. Was that a conscious decision?
It was an amazing discovery because we always say that unlike children or artists or amateur painters, we didn't start with a box of colours or a box of crayons or coloured pencils. We didn't have any colour. We had a black and white. Yeah? And it took us 4 years to find red because it felt that it was connected with anger, to do with love, to do with blood, to do with danger, to do with communism, to do with fear, to do with sunset. And we felt we could use red in different ways to add to the black and white. And then how long before we found yellow?
I think in 1980 we started to have these 4 or 5 different colors, blue, yellow, and green.
So very, very slow to actually to find color.
In fact, because we always say that our colors are based on they have the meanings, the meanings for color. Like we always used to say, that yellow had a sophistication, And like red is anger more, and blue is more, I don't know, like eternity.
One can make different moods even with colours, yeah? Combined with the subject.
Another element that is there from very early on is the use of words, almost a graffiti-like element. Often the words that are used in graffiti, such as fuck or cunt in some cases. And this is what has led to the suggestion from some people that your work is shocking. You were aware that those words were explosive.
Yeah, they're mostly ones which also appear in the Bible and the Oxford Dictionary, by the way. Yeah. Very much of that. I think we started with the magazine sculpture, the shit in the cunt, as a sort of preemptive strike. It didn't matter what they called us after that, we'd done it first, yeah? And then we wanted to use we felt that the city that we were trying to show was a sort of big rude word and an angry shout and things. So we went around and took fuck, shit, lick, dick, and we thought it was an extraordinary discovery. They still are amazing, those pictures. Communism, smash the Reds.
It was a kind of abusiveness that we found on the walls that we felt was more real than a nice piece of writing. It became this more aggressive and more real and more, it told an extraordinary story of like 1977, 78, when we started to do the first graffiti one. It was real at that time. It probably was more real than all the newspapers, no? The simple version of aggression. And we always liked that. We always liked what you call the writing behind the door, in some way. And we're still keeping that up in some way.
We always felt that it must be very close to the act of creativity. What drives a person to go up and write fuck on the wall? Because not everyone does, very, very few people. The driving force that makes a person do that is very close to the force that would make somebody write a poem or paint a picture.
We don't
very
swear
close to creativity.
ourselves.
Although one is seen as destructive and one as creative, generally, isn't it?
Yeah, but we realized even at that time that that was coming to an end, that kind of anger. And it did come to an end. 2 or 3, no one writes that on the walls anymore. Writing on walls or saying something on the wall now is a sophisticated, elaborate thing. Yeah.
Although there's a lot of anger still, isn't there?
Not in that way. Nobody writes prick arse on the wall anymore. It's all gone.
And you said there that you don't swear yourself.
No.
Of course not, we're very normal.
I talked about we've mentioned several times that the reaction, the shocked reaction of some newspapers and some people. Have you ever felt, in retrospect, you went too far? Is there anything you ever regretted?
Not once.
We know the line that we want to go up to, whether we're showing in China or in London or New York. We know exactly that line. We don't want to offend any single person in that way. We don't want to aggress the viewer. We don't want to say, look at this, you do agree with it, if not, you're stupid. We wouldn't. A lot of artists do that. We don't do that.
But art has to be visually different, no? If not, it's like everybody else, everything else. No? It has to be different. No? It has to be.
We want to grab the person.
Grab
yes?
the attention of the person in front of it. Our motto is always, when they see a show of us, they have to be able to remember that show forever, or that picture forever. That's why we simplify it into like a stencil that speaks.
But when there's a particular case when the word "Paki" appeared in one of the paintings. Now, you weren't endorsing that word. It was a word that is used offensively, and you were reflecting that. But that did concern some viewers of it.
Yeah, it's the same educated group who would be against us using the Union Jack or using an image of a soldier. Yeah? There's nothing wrong with the word Paki. It's the same as Aussie or Brit.
Well, there is if it's used derogatively of a racial group.
If you say Paki bastard, yes, then it's offensive. But if you say Paki, it's not.
I thought it was an abbreviation.
But it's used to denigrate a particular.
And
we don't agree that it should be offensive. That it's an abbreviation of a word, isn't it?
It came from Scotland.
But it's a term with a racial. It's a term with a negative racial history.
It became negative.
We think that's sad, and we should like to rob that back, steal it back.
You were reclaiming it.
Absolutely. It's rather like when we did the picture Queer. A lot of gay people were up in arms about that. 2 years later, they're all having queer as fuck on their t-shirts and dancing the nightwear. Yeah.
And the word queer was then reclaimed.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong inherently with the word Paki. Absolutely not.
It is not it's just an abbreviation of a word, no? They made it into something that is actually was not.
There were 6 Indo-Pak clubs for single men in our district at that time. They've gone now because the families came over.
But
I think it can be an endowment as well. Yeah.
But by using that term in a painting, a picture, to some people it's endorsing it. It's saying this word is...
Yeah, for some people, yes. No. I agree with that.
If it makes people think about racism, which it did, it's very good, I think. It brings things out from inside of people that the others wouldn't think. They won't talk about racism or Pakistani people going to see all these silly abstract art exhibitions, will they? It's rather good.
No, but some of your critics were accusing you of being racist. I mean, did that make you...
but we don't believe in the critics.
Did that make you uncomfortable?
Yes, it did make us uncomfortable, but we don't believe that we did something wrong.
Subsequently, you never thought we need to be more careful?
No. No, I wouldn't think that. No. I think we naturally have an idea of the line up to which we want to go. Yeah.
One of those lines for some people was the use of bodily substances of various kinds, semen, blood, feces, some more controversial than others. Were you aware of taking on a taboo when you did that?
Yes, we were aware of the taboo. It was quite even difficult for us. But at the same time, you can go into a library and find all the stuff in many, many books.
No, I think we did an extraordinary experiment with that. I think we found out about even DNA before people commonly thought about that. They contain one little bit of fingernail and tell all about you and your family forever. And I think the shit and the blood and the piss and the tears has something of that in it as well.
Indeed, all the substances you use have been used in forensic science subsequently in order to identify people.
Sometimes we feel we're scraping the streets of London with our fingernails and then seeing what's inside them in the studio underneath.
But we liked very much the visual effect, because they create an amazing visual effect.
That there are flowers in piss, that there are daggers in sweat, we think is very exciting.
There's a quote from 1997 which touches on this, I think. We wanted to do art to be embarrassed. Art that embarrasses ourselves. I think we still do that. We are very embarrassed sometimes of what we're doing, and that's a good feeling. When it hurts, then it's true for us.
We believe in that, yeah. But still, every show is that.
As we make the pictures, we always know that we have a feeling of, that is what we call creativity, really. Yeah. The only thing we can compare it with is when one's deeply attracted to a new person, that everything else is different, not just that person. That the house and the garden and the air, the atmosphere, everything is exalted because of that feeling. And when we're in the studio creating, it's like that. We're on another plane, really.
It is embarrassing. It is difficult. It is what you call feels. You would like to run away from it. No?
And it's exciting.
And it's exciting because it is that age. It must be like being on the front, no? Before being. It is all exciting and nervous-making, and at the same time,
it's a thrill.
That's the best. That's the best thing that you can do in art, no? If not, you just do boring art, no? That doesn't mean anything. We know about that. There's some.
We've been anti-elitist from the day we left St. Martin's. Yeah? Whilst we were at St. Martin's, we were already.
Art. We never wanted to do an art for the few, and.
We knew that if you took the sculptures that people were making at St. Martin's outside onto the Charing Cross Road, they would lose all value immediately. No one would notice them. Yeah. We wanted to make an art that meant something to every single person, wherever they lived in the world. That they look at that picture and it would speak to them in some way. Not just London, Paris, New York, 3 overeducated arty twits. Yeah. Art for all. We always said art for all.
But that question of being embarrassed, so in the pictures, for example, where you're both standing naked in various poses, did you ever formally discuss that? We are going to use ourselves in this way?
Yes, no, it came from using other people, probably. We had other people naked in the pictures, then the next stage is us.
And was it, as they say in movies, a closed set? I mean, you were naked with each other?
Yeah, we take photographs of each other and together with a cable as well, yeah. A timing device. The only interesting thing is that it's known naked. Anonymous naked means nothing. All the magazines are full of that. So only if they have a photograph of the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh naked will the world beat a path to it, right?
If not, it doesn't mean anything. They all run naked through the woods, no? into the
No
sea.
naked is the key. Yes,
The old desire to have thousands of people naked means nothing.
Do you ever think, what will people make of this lot?
I mean, we want to be loved. That's very important.
We all want to be loved.
We all want to be loved. That's very important. That's why we have to do always the next pictures. Maybe the next time they will love us. No, that's it.
We know our fans. We know we have our fans out there who will love the pictures, and we know the 2 or 3 people who will be against them. Yeah?
It has to be pro and against. But in general, we have to be able to do what we want and continue doing what we want, because time changes everything. That we realize. Time changes. The artwork.
The best example is the Dirty Words pictures, which we created in 1977, and most of our friends and supporters at that time thought that we'd gone over the top, getting a bit silly. Right? You don't need to make pictures with prick, arse, cunt, dick in. Yeah, it's a bit too much, they felt. Yeah. Well, 27 years later, we showed them all together for the first time in the Serpentine Gallery, and some of those same people were around and came to the opening, admiring the pictures. And we said, but don't you remember in 1977 you went, oh no, we've always loved them. You see, the pictures had stayed the same, but the world had changed.
The world is changing.
The world accommodated the dirty words.
But the world
slowly.
is changing, very, very slow. We don't even realize how slow it changes, but it is changing.
And we're all part of that. You're part of it as well. Yeah?
You talked about being on the outside of the art world, but also politically that's the case, because you have spoken in the past of being, if not Thatcherites, then at least admirers of Margaret Thatcher, which was unusual.
Of course. We still are. What do you think, we are weird?
It was seen as weird in the liberal arts world.
It's the most normal thing to vote Conservative. No? More people voted Conservative
I think more people
vote
Conservative in England than Labour. And it's very simple, because what they call Labour is part of collectivism, and we are for the freedom of the individual, that everybody is different. And that's what we believe. We are not all the same. That's it.
You are, you were Thatcherites. Are you Cameroons now?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But less and less, we actually don't need what they call politics ourselves. I never voted in my entire life.
You've never voted?
I never voted, ever.
You sound surprised.
I know, but we don't need anything. It's extraordinary.
We always think that art and culture is in advance of politics, because people vote culturally. You will probably vote depending on what books your parents did or did not read, what music your mother did or did not listen to. So in fact, we're there to lead the way, to form the kind of people who will make the right kind of vote.
I think more and more we believe anywhere the whole country should just be organized by a very good company to sort it all out.
Privatise Westminster. We always voted for that. Yeah, suggest.
To make it, everybody has to, without what you call it. After all, it's only to sort out a way of living. No? That everybody has a certain everybody can survive in some way. It's based on surviving in some way. No?
Do you vote, George?
Of course.
And always Tory?
Yes, I'm loyal. Yeah. Loyal to the party. We're just champagne conservatives.
Although there is a paradox which you must have reflected on clearly, which is that many of the people who have opposed your art have been conservatives.
Generally speaking, they're left-wing.
That's interesting.
The enemy, generally speaking. The most hostility came from the left, yeah.
In 1980.
No, ordinary conservative people are not against artists or anything like that.
Because they don't know about art. Very few know about art.
But if I organised a coach trip from the Tunbridge Wells Conservative Party Society to many of your shows over the years...
Fine group of people.
Yes, but there would be a substantial degree of shock, I think, for a number of those.
I don't care about that.
The dirty words pictures, there would be. There is a moralistic side. I mean, you're quite right, there's on the left. There is a moralistic streak on the right.
Yes. Yes. I mean, we don't, we don't ask exactly what everybody thinks. Why should we do that? That's like every writer, no? You have to be true to yourself and do whatever you think is right for you. No?
It was our late friend Daniel Farson who tackled Mrs. Thatcher, saying that is it true that she had a strong dislike of contemporary art? And she poked him in the chest and said, with modern art, you would have to look and look and look again. That's not bad, is it?
Not bad at all. Have you been invited to Chequers by any of these Conservative Prime Ministers?
We've never been.
No.
We have been invited once, by Edward Heath.
Oh, yes,
out
we were.
of Salisbury.
For
And it
lunch.
was for lunch, because we met him in China when we had a big show in '93, and that was very good, because we said we wanted to...
We wanted to penetrate the viewer.
Yeah.
And he said, I've been trying to penetrate the British public for years.
And he was familiar with your art?
I don't know about that, but he wanted to be supportive.
Yeah.
We don't ask so many questions ourselves, because we are outsiders. No?
Do you still see yourselves as outsiders, though? I mean, you've had huge retrospective at the Tate, I mean, bigger than any other living artist, I think. You can't still be outsiders.
We are. We were only insider for 3 months.
He never hanged a picture since.
Do they have anything in the permanent collection?
No.
Not that we know of.
They have a very big collection of our art. They have 20 or 30 pieces of us.
But not on display?
No. We don't fit in.
Does that irritate you? It must.
Yeah.
It surprises visitors. People stop us on the street from France or Japan and say they've just come from Tate Modern and there's a picture of yours there. Yeah, extraordinary. They expect to see one, yes, or more. We think that's wrong.
Have you objected to them? And have you written?
No.
You never write.
They knew. They knew.
They know our
They should
views.
do that, yeah.
You don't take much interest in the modern art world. I mean, Damien, Tracy, all these
We
people.
know them. They are around us. We know them. They are in our street. But we don't want to, pollute our brain with other people's art.
But you know what Tracy Emin does, for example.
We know
We know what
everybody.
everyone does because of the post. You get 50 invitation cards with 50 images every day.
But we have a very good
Unavoidable.
shredder.
Do you take a close interest in how much the work sells for and who owns it?
We always were the artists who didn't concentrate on upping the price all the time. We can't have silly prices, obviously. We try to keep it down in a way, wouldn't you say?
Yes, but we have never been involved in, we never ask who bought it, because many times it's very embarrassing and very disappointing, so we don't want to know. Because after all, modern art is for the rich, and museums, but they have to borrow the money or they have to be given the money to buy them. Seeing an artwork of us is very, very difficult, because a lot of museums think it's too extreme. A lot of private collectors, we always feel that 70 or 85% of collectors wouldn't touch us because they are disturbed, they say, by our art. So it's a very limited amount of people who actually are our collectors. That's why we are fascinated by books, that we can, subsidize and create books, and everybody can buy books in a cheap way.
A lot of people who stop us on the street love our art, and we say, where did you see it? And they say, oh, I saw it in a catalogue in a friend's house. Yeah? That's the most ordinary place. You can buy a catalogue, you can steal it, you can lend it, you can give it. They're 24 hours every day of the year. Extraordinary form, books and catalogues. And although art is very expensive, and as Gilbert says, for the rich, the fact remains that there are tens of millions of postcards of artworks by Van Gogh and so on. And exhibitions are largely free or inexpensive.
We never, we would never want to know what's the prices of our art. We make our price of the new works. No? The rest we don't know. We don't care too much.
Because you can't control it later
No,
on,
you cannot
because
control it.
they're sold on. But,
Secondary market is secondary market, yeah.
but in the last 20 years or so, on that secondary market, eye-watering sums, as you know, modern art in general has been
Horrific.
going for.
Don't like it. I think it's much too much. It's horrific.
It's cheaper to buy something from 1650, it seems. Extraordinary.
But that's why we prefer big shows instead of
Have you ever considered the possibility of retirement, or will you simply carry on?
Artists never retire. It's unthinkable.
It's very good, because we made ourselves more active now with a new technology. Normally, we had to go up ladders in the studio. We don't even have to do that now. It's just in front of you on the television, the screen, and the computer.
Screen,
And it is like an extension of our brain. You can do it direct into it. And for us, it's just It's a fantastic technology.
You must have thought about this over the years. If one of you became incapacitated or were unavailable...
Both incapacitated.
No, but if one of you were unable to go on making art...
We had the usual joke, remember, George?
Which one?
The street.
Ah, no, that's if we're no longer here. This is just if you become ill or something.
No, we can do the one if one of you is no longer here. You must have talked about that as well. Would the other carry on?
You can find a replacement, yeah. Why not?
We already have one, our assistant. He dresses up like us already. But they always ask us this question in Germany.
It's a German question. What happens when one of you dies?
And what do you say in Germany?
Oh, we always say...
Be sure, we are.
We say, do you mean if one of us falls under a bus? And we say, fear not, we always cross the road together.
Imagine 100 years on, a book called British Art of the 20th and 21st Centuries. We turn to the entry on Gilbert and George. What would you like it to say?
First of all, we'll be on the cover.
But we are setting up our own foundation. That all what we have is going to be there, like a little nest left over. With all our collections, all our books, we have thousands of books, and all our designs of the pictures, all our negatives, and a lot of pictures as well. So everything is going to be there for a while. And the moment we're trying to raise money to...
Nothing happens until we're not here, but anyway, our legacy will be intact.
Not in a big way, a small way, in our houses, in Spitalfields.
It would become a museum, you hope?
Yes, like a little...
Gilbert and George Centre is called.
Yeah, a little bit like the Soanes Museum or something, yeah.
Do you care about what people think when you're gone?
I mean, we are not in charge of that.
We try not to have opinions about things we cannot affect. It's one of our main rules, in fact.
Because in some way we are control freaks. If not the invitation card, the publicity and how the design of the exhibition is all done by us in advance.
But all art, it's an attempt at some kind of immortality, isn't it? Some kind of afterlife.
Oh, yes.
Oh, we believe in that. Yeah. We think it's extraordinary that you just say Charles Dickens. Whether you've read a book or not, something fills your head. That's the man speaking from the grave. William Blake. Another mood comes over. Yeah? That's the power of culture. That's why people in cultivated countries tend not to kill each other. Yeah? It's a civilized way of being. If you go to a country where there's no modern art gallery, no concert hall, no public library, you will almost certainly need to hire a bodyguard. You will see dead bodies on the way in from the airport to the city. Yeah?
I think that was the last word. Gilbert and George, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.